Hello, I am the Septuagenarian Explorer out on a new exploration. Today we're going to talk about water and wells in Anguilla. Anguilla is essentially a limestone reef. It is relatively flat and it is narrow. It's about 3 miles wide and 15 miles long. And the ground in many places, you can see quite how rugged the limestone is. It has been eroded away over the many generations with rainfall. Because limestone's relatively soft for a rock, and it forms crevices, underground chambers. I mentioned in a prior video that there are a few caverns that have freshwater pools within them. The groundwater, the water, when it rains in Anguilla, the water seeps down through various cracks into small aquifers that are under the surface, obviously. And it is these freshwater aquifers where wells are drilled down to obtain water. They, again, are relatively small aquifers that can easily be drained over a short period of time if they are not replenished by rainfall. Frequently, these the aquifers and the wells are near salt ponds. And the salt ponds obviously are not drinkable water, they're brackish water. The salt and that salty water percolates also down into the groundwater, and the bases of the aquifers are frequently this brackish salty water, and on top of it there is a relatively shallow lens of fresh water. So again, if rainfall does not replenish these freshwater aquifers, then the water will become increasingly salty and it won't be able to be used for drinking water. This is Mead's Bay Salt Pond. Over the rise there, you could have a view of the Atlantic Ocean. This is a fairly large salt pond. And again, this water, obviously salty, seeps down into cracks below and forms the basis for some of the aquifers where the fresh water sits on top of the saltier water. And these ponds are known for attracting a lot of different types of birds. Has a viewing area, and the different types of birds that you might be able to see here. I can hear some birds, but oh, okay, wait, I see one there. Let's see if we can get close up on that. Okay, there's a little bird waiting in the shallows of the salt pond. Let's now look at this and see. I don't know, maybe it's the, let me get it closer. Oh, the light isn't helpful here. So I'm not going to be able to get a close-up of it, but it might be the black-necked stilt bird. Oh, now there's two. Let's get up closer and you can see both of those. They're a relatively small bird. You should be able to see herons and pintail ducks and grass quits and kingbirds and lesser Antillean bullfinch, and kestrel, and snowy egret. So some of these are likely to be seen. This gives some sightings of birds and the time period. Let's see if I can. It's a little bit hard to. Now we will head from this overlook of the salt pond, and as you can see, very near to the salt pond is the location of Bedneys Well, one of the very first wells that was dug here in the West End to provide water for the population living here. They've created a nice little historical viewing area, and there are a number of benches that you can sit on while contemplating the importance of these wells. The well is just off a main road, so while I'm talking, it's going to be fairly noisy with the various cars and trucks going up and down. And this is an entry to the well. It says, "Welcome." So let's go up here. And this is Bedneys Well. It was used daily for many, many generations. Women and girls collecting the water for drinking and cooking and other purposes. And you can see that there is still water down there. So the aquifer still has some water in it. Not sure how fresh or brackish this water might be, but still capable of getting water if you are really in need of it. And over here is a memorial plaque. And let's see, Bedneys Well. I can get close enough so that that can be read. Well, I'll go ahead and read it. So, the West End community is home to Rogers Well, also known as the New Well, and Bedneys Well. We'll go to Rogers Well in a little bit. Both wells stand as monuments of the community's heritage, forged through unity, strength, resilience, and perseverance. Anguilla, known for its many salt ponds but limited access to fresh water sources, used wells to supply communities with fresh water. The fresh water obtained from these wells was as a result of seawater being filtered by the limestone rocks deep within the ground. Between the late 1800s and early 1900s, Anguilla experienced extended periods of drought and famine. Britain, during that time, proposed Anguillans relocate to Demerara to ensure survival. This proposal was immediately rejected as Anguillans refused to give up their home to move to territories unknown to them. It was these periods of drought which birthed the era of well digging on Anguilla. Bedneys Well, located in Bedneys Hollow, was the first well dug in West End. It provided water for home use, drinking, cooking, bathing, and washing. In 1926, Rogers Well, appreciatively named after Mr. Robertson Rogers, the foreman instrumental in digging the new well, was constructed. This new well then became the well from which water for drinking and cooking was sourced, while Bedneys Well provided water for washing and farming purposes. So perhaps the water here in Bedneys Well was a little more brackish and not as good for drinking and cooking. You can see Mead's salt pond there. Over here is a plaque that talks more about how the girls and women needed to obtain the water from the wells, but the sun has really bleached the photos out, so it's really hard to see anything here, but I can read what it says. Women and young children, mainly young girls, were the ones who fetched water from the wells. In the early mornings before the sun rises, and in the evenings, the women and girls would be seen carrying their buckets and demijohns to fetch water. These long treks along rocky tracks were always done barefooted, as families were unable to afford shoes for everyday use. The women and young girls were also the ones who could be found sitting under the shade of trees near the wells as they went about their daily washing. Okay, now I'm going to walk from Bedneys Well to Rogers Well, which is down the street and across the highway. So hopefully the traffic won't be too bad. It's not a very long walk, so we'll see how it goes. So this region that I'm walking from was Bedneys Hollow. Might get a little rain while I am walking. I feel sprinkles. Do some refreshing of the aquifer that provides the water for Bedneys Well. We have a little rain. Now I'm walking on a paved road, but you imagine the women and girls many, many decades ago that were walking in bare feet on the rough surface of Anguilla. If you've watched some of my prior videos, you can see the unpaved surface of Anguilla is not something that most of us would want to walk on barefoot. But when you have no option, you do what you need to do. Okay, so we're getting close. So far it's just lightly sprinkling. I would rather not get caught in a downpour, but talking about well water and the necessity of relying a lot on rainwater, it seems somewhat apropos for it to be raining while I am doing this video. Now there we can see right across the road there is Rogers Well. So I'm going to see if I can dash across. Yes, nothing's coming. Here we go. And this is a very nice memorial site to the well. You can see once again, there's a lot of seating. So I imagine their tour groups come, and probably school children are brought here to learn more about the history of Anguilla. And we will go up here. And this would be the original well, which is sealed over. I wonder why they did not build a shelter around it like they did with Bedneys Well, but anyway. No one is allowed to use it now, and I guess it was considered dangerous, so they sealed it over. But lots of seating around, so for probably talks by tour guides. And let's get up close here. You can see, well, again, the lighting's not great, but it says 1926. And over here it says Rogers Well. So that was when this well was heavily utilized by the local population. This is a little building that is for information purposes about the well. Let's go in there and see what it has to say. And here we see it says Stories of the Well. So I will go and we'll read some of these stories. So here's the first story. This is Ms. Viola Richardson, and when she gave the story, she was 90, and she was the daughter of Mr. Robertson Rogers, the man who dug the well. Let's see what she has to say. I can remember the walks to the new well. Around 5 in the morning, my friends would come calling for me. I would pick up my demijohn, and we would walk with the rest of the village to the well. You could hear all the chatting in the darkness. It was like a big social. Oh, these were the days. It was fun, you know, that walk with friends. Mainly the women and young girls, though sometimes the little boys would join us. But it was just us young girls and older women. When we reached the new well, this strong village man would help drop the bucket into the well and pull that bucket up. That well was much deeper than Bedneys. But mind you, there were some strong women too. They would drop that bucket in the well and pull that bucket up even faster than that man. Sometimes we would have to make more than one trip, make sure all our barrels at home were full of water. Oh, Saturdays were fun. We would make that walk to Bedneys Well, wash our clothes. Man, that was almost a whole day task, washing clothes, hanging them on bushes and rocks to dry, then folding them and making our way home. Okay, the next one is Ms. Lydian Richardson, who was age 62 when she told her story. Let me see, I was about 11 or 13 years old. I used to walk over a mile to go to school. When school finished at 3:30 p.m., I would wait by the school for my sisters. My parents had 9 children, all girls. Then we would walk to the wells. Back then we lived very far west, so it was a long, long walk. Maybe over 2 miles to walk back home. Bedneys Well, that one wasn't deep, so I used to go on my knees and scoop out water to fill my bucket. My sisters and I used to make that trip to the well, sometimes up to 3 times a day, you know. The first trip we would do 4-day morning, about 5 a.m., and walk back all that way. Listen, we did all that walking without shoes on our feet. The whole way was dirty, and sometimes you would butt your toe on little rocks. I remember walking from the well with my big bucket of water on my head, and I butt my toe. I put down one crying, and you know, all the water fall from the bucket, so I had to walk back to the well and fill my bucket and start back on my walk home. I cried the whole time. Life was hard back then. It just wasn't easy. Okay, next story. We have Mrs. Jessica Riley, née Hodge, and she was 80 when she told her story. I was raised in Long Bay, and well, life was what it was. Growing up, I used to help my parents sowing seeds out in the ground and then helping them to harvest. From where Maluana Hotel is right now to where Frangipani Hotel is was once called sandy ground. You know, that was because how sandy the soil was. So in that area, we planted potatoes and pigeon peas, but no corn because the soil was just too sandy to plant corn. Oh, we also had sheep and cows. I used to help my parents with taking care of the sheep, but the cows was left for the boys to help with. How did we maintain this farming lifestyle? With water from Bedneys Well, of course. I remember walking the track along the pond to go to Bedneys Well to get water for the animals and to water the plants. You know, all along the pond had freshwater springs. People used to take water from these springs to give to their cows, well, their animals. We had big barrels behind our home. We would fill them with water from the well so we would not have to make so many trips every day. I remember washing clothes at Bedneys Well too. We would wash right there at the well. There were some big tamarind trees. They would give us very nice shade while we did our washing. Our main water source was the new well. It was so deep. When I grew older, I would think, we were so lucky that no one fell in that well. Thank God. Which might explain why the well is now sealed. Okay, and our last story is from Mrs. Daphne Hodge Connor, and she was in her 70s when she told her story. I was born and raised, big truck going by, I'll start again. I was born and raised in the little village of Long Bay. Life was tough, but we were happy. I used to walk 1.5 miles to West End School, and when we would get home from school, my elder sisters and I would walk to Bedneys Well for water. All that walking was without shoes, but we knew exactly which rocks to step on, so we didn't hurt our feet. You see, the road we have now wasn't so. It was a small dirt track. We would walk to Bedneys without shoes. The water from Bedneys was used for chores around the house, but not for cooking and drinking. We would carry the buckets of water on our head. We would put what we called a coffin on their heads and then lift the buckets of water and place them on the coffin. You know what a coffin is? Well, it's an old clothes wrapped or rolled to make a pad. It would be like a padding for the head, like a cushion, so the heavy bucket of water didn't sit directly on your head. Oh, and when you had the heavy bucket of water on your head, if you did not put bush in the water to still the water, when you got home, all the water is gone and you would be soaked. My sisters used to break white cedar branches and lolly tree branches and put it in the buckets of water. Hardly a drop would fall. During vacation time, I would go with my sisters to Bedneys to wash. They would put the clothes with soap and a rub board in the bath pans to do the washing. I used to enjoy that day because there would be 4 or 5 families from West End, Mead's Bay, and Long Bay, all there washing. The younger girls, like myself, would be the ones to go into the well to get the water to wash the clothes. Bedneys Well wasn't deep, so I would go down in the well to dip in the water. Remember, my sisters would tell me, stick your foot. That means I had to wedge my feet in the rocks of the well so I don't fall in. I would use a small dipper to take the water to fill the big buckets. When I was done with that, I would go play with my friends until it was time to spread the washed clothes on the low bushes. I didn't wash, but would help hang the clothes. We used to walk with our food to eat because washing clothes was a whole day thing. Oh, the new well. Water from that well was used for cooking and drinking. Only the older ones were allowed to draw water because this well was very, very deep. We children would wait for the older ones to fill our buckets, and while we wait, we would shout down in the well and listen as our shouts echoed back to us. Well, that's a fun story. So, she provided some very interesting information, like if you put some leaves in your bucket of water, it was less likely to splash, and so your water would make it home with you. That was quite interesting. Okay. And let's see, now this is just this is just a repeat of what was at Bedneys Well, so I won't read that again. And it's still a little bit sprinkly out here, but not raining, so I think I will be able to make my walk back okay. You can see this is landscaped very nicely, and definitely this is a nice little tour to take of the wells if you are in the West End and wanting to know more about Anguilla's history. Okay, I'm back at Bedneys Well, and I'm kind of wonder if this upper part here is relatively new, because as I read earlier, that one woman said when she was a girl she used to climb down the rocky wall to the water, and it wasn't very deep down there. So I'm thinking that it would have started more at ground level and then gone down, because otherwise that seems like a very treacherous trip for a little girl to get water. Well, it has really started raining now, so that will end this tour, this exploration by the Septuagenarian Explorer, and I will see you next time.